All right, let's get this baby started. Hi, my name is Sven Burns. I'm a student here at Elon, and I'm the president of the Young Americans for Liberty, which is a nonpartisan club that gathers a couple times a month to talk about current issues, debate, and discuss. But today we are here for North Carolina's very own libertarian candidate for the United States Senate, which is Sean Haugh, like the river. Just like Elon's Yale chapter, Sean Haugh values peace and diplomacy, which is sort of national defense, not national offense, preserving our civil liberties and spending much less federal money to lower the deficit. We stand side by side with you, Sean Haugh, and let's engage North Carolina in the most important conversation we could possibly have, planning and protecting our futures and our country's future. Think about joining Yale. I'll be in the back. We got a sign-up sheet, some free books and stuff. And thank you, Sean Haugh. And now I'll give up the microphone to Jay Schulte, the Elon Political Forum's president. And thanks to the EPF for having this awesome event. And just for y'all's knowledge, we're going to have a couple introductions, Sean's speech, and then prepared questions and answer, and then at the very end, audience questions and answers. All right, thank you.
All right, hey everyone, welcome to today's event. My name is Jay Schulte. I'm lucky enough to be your host for tonight. So essentially, I just wanted to talk about kind of like our little history that we got going on. So 6 months ago, the little man you all know is Pratik Patel, and I got together to discuss the politics forum as we knew it. In those months, the politics forum was struggling. We had no guest speakers. We hosted no events. We held irregular forums, and we had no more than 6 members at any one thing we put on. Now, the politics forum is known as something else. We've rebranded, we've re-emphasized, and we've reestablished what a political forum should truly be on campus. We established that we want to send a message of nonpartisan communication between all individuals on campus. An undivided message of knowledge, respect, and wisdom throughout our community. Today, we sit here with an entirely different organization than it once was. Our newly branded Elon Politics Forum has taken great strides. We're working with other clubs on campus, such as YL, which, by the way, thank you very much for letting us work with you guys again. And we're also working with non-political organizations, Elon News Network, African Society amongst them. But most importantly, we're really communicating with you. The members of the Elon community, and we're hosting things like student debates, watch parties, events, and guest speakers, and we have you guys to show for what we've accomplished. And make no mistake, we know this is one of our smaller events, but guys, you should really see the big ones. They're a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to the stuff we got putting on and everything with all the preparation and all that. But I do want to say really briefly that we are obligated, that we are a nonpartisan organization on campus, so we do not stand for what Elon strictly stands for. But our biggest thing is just bringing in everybody, bringing in people from NCSL, from college Democrats, from college Republicans, to hear everybody speak, and so that you guys can have a clear message, and that we can hear clear messages from all the political factions on campus. And that's something we really feel that is very important. I mean, as the president of EPA currently, I can say that I'm more excited about the future of politics on campus than I've ever been. And that's something that's really exciting. So on that note, I'm really happy he's here. I'd love to present our U.S. Senate candidate. Yes, Mr. Sean Haugh.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Thanks to the Young Americans for Liberty, Elon Political Forum, for having me. Sure, I can put this right here where I can't spell it. In North Carolina, I'm carrying my student IST wherever I go. But howdy, I am Sean Haugh, Libertarian for U.S. Senate in North Carolina in 2016, and I'm back from the dead. As you may have heard, 3 weeks ago, I suffered a heart attack and was in the hospital for about 4 days. I'm so glad to be living in the 21st century because 3 weeks later, 5 prescriptions and 3 stents later, I'm grateful to still be among the living and still feeling a little bit stronger every day. In fact, in some ways, I'm feeling a little bit better than I have. Proper circulation to your heart is certainly useful. But naturally, such an event gives a person cause to reflect upon one's life's choices. And I personally feel blessed. I realize I wouldn't change much of anything at all about my life. I love my life just as it is, and I'm simply happy to get right back to it. I'll share a little bit of, sort of a Greg's side reflection advice for you here, but I know, don't worry about it, because most people won't pay attention to it. Nobody pays attention to it until they really need it. That's okay. But I do want to say that friendship is the highest value. I'm so fortunate to be surrounded by wonderful friends and supporters who care about my continuing existence. Life is too short to spend it on anybody who doesn't love you just for who you are. And it's pretty standard back from the dead advice, right? But someday you'll realize just how true it is. But this reflection helped me refine and recommit to my core principles. Why am I continuing to run for U.S. Senate when I could probably stand to just take it easy for the next couple months and continue to recover? is because I want everyone else to have the opportunity to say, I love my life. It's not asking a lot. I'm happy just to have a place to live, a job I enjoy, comfortable clothes, good food and drink, indulge in a few simple hobbies, and good friends to share it all with. I think most people feel the same way. There are so many ways that limiting government could make it easy for everyone to achieve these simple goals. First, we must have peace. We must stop all war. Every kind of war, both literal war and figurative war. I'll find my place here. There we go. We must stop being at war with the rest of the world and with each other. For over 15 years now, we've been trying to solve our problems in the Middle East and now in Africa with war. And our problems have only gotten worse. War has spread. More players have become involved, killing thousands and making refugees of millions of people with no end in sight. Besides waging war directly, we have armed anyone and everyone in the region. Not only has this resulted in many of our weapons falling into the hands of our enemies and being used against us, we now have American-backed factions in Syria at war with each other, all paid for with our tax dollars. And now the war is coming to Europe and to America with acts of terrorism. When will we learn that our warfare and arms sales to everyone is making us less secure? We must end the war on drugs, at home and abroad. This destructive program has caused us to incarcerate more people than the entire rest of the free world combined, as well as increasing violence in our own neighborhoods and in our neighbors to the south. We must free the prisoners of the war on drugs and allow them to have the same chance to live a life that they love, just as you and I do. We must end our militarization of the border and the breaking up of families through deportation. Everyone deserves an opportunity to live in peace and to make a productive life for themselves and their families, wherever they may find it. We must end the militarization of police at home and stop filling up law enforcement with the war mentality. In order to have peace in our communities, we must restore our relationship with the police, to protect and serve the people instead of seeing us as adversaries. More importantly, we must end culture war. We must stop being at war with each other. When we act as if all political problems would be solved if only half the country would drop dead, well, there's no solution in that. More and more, this violent, hateful rhetoric only encourages unstable people to pick up a gun to try to solve their political and social problems. I mean, from a president who claims the power to kill anybody he wants to, anywhere in the world, just on his say-so, all the way to people arguing over parking spaces. Violence is now the first resort for a lot of people to try to solve our problems. We need to stop thinking that this violence is going to solve anything. It only creates more problems for us. I believe now, more than ever, we must stop killing as government policy and on a personal level. We must get the murder out of our own hearts. The other way we can restore to all people the opportunity to live a life that they love is to stop spending more money than we have by vastly reducing the size and scope of government. Our level of debt is completely unsustainable. Soon we'll run out of money to pay all of the obligations that we've made. I mean, I'm 55, and I do not expect Social Security to be there for me, even just 10 years from now. There we go. The first thing we need to do is to stop voting for politicians who just want to keep spending money we don't have. We must stop inflation and make people's money keep its value over time. I remember when one full-time job was enough to sustain your average family of 4 or 5. Now families need multiple streams of income just to stay above water. Inflation is simply a transfer of wealth from poor to rich. We require a monetary policy that allows people to keep all the money that they earn. Government at all levels currently gobbles up about 38% of our entire gross domestic product. Of that, the federal government, just by itself, takes up about 22.5% of all of our wealth, of everything that's produced in this country. Imagine how much more prosperous we would be if we could keep all that money for ourselves. We must end corporate welfare, where so much of our regulatory policy is based on protecting big business from liability and competition. The problem is the government claims power to rule over every aspect of our lives. With that power so centralized, it's easy for corporate special interests to buy it. We need to get as much power as possible out of the hands of Congress and back into the hands of the people, so that these special interests have to convince millions of consumers individually, not just a handful of legislators, that they deserve to stay in business. We must repeal the regulations that keep people mired in debt and prevent people from creating their own business opportunities. If you could keep all the money that you earn and you were free to start a new business, that would not only lead to more people being able to live the kind of life that they love, the increased productivity would create more jobs and more opportunity for everyone. I'm running for U.S. Senate because Democrats and Republicans only promise us more perpetual war, more unsustainable debt, and more authoritarian plans to run every aspect of our lives. Only libertarians want to stop all war. Only libertarians want you to keep all the money that you earn. Only libertarians will let you live your life your way. I firmly believe there's already enough wealth on this planet that everyone can earn enough to take care of themselves, their families, and their communities. It doesn't take much. We just need to get government out of the way. We can do the rest. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Feel free to visit my website, seanhaugh.com. I'll set a YouTube channel, and where I have a lot of videos, over 50 videos on a number of topics. I'm on Facebook at Haugh for Senate, and on Twitter at Emperor Sean. I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you very much for that. Now we will be moving on to the prepared question section, so we're going to get us to go.
Alrighty, so to begin with, I'm Stephanie Milovich. I'm one of your moderators.
I'm Tyler Lebekian, I'm also one of your moderators.
Okay, we're both from Elon Politics Forum. So to start off with the first question, this is in regarding to the legalization of marijuana. So the question is, why do you support the legalization of marijuana? And would you support federal legalization over allowing individual states to choose their own laws?
To answer those questions in order, I think marijuana should be legal because it's a so-called victimless crime. It harms no one for whatever drugs people want to take. Marijuana being the most popular. I think that the majority of Americans now favor legalization, and it's really gotten to the point where, everybody knows people who smoke weed. And, people are living productive lives, they're harming no one, and yet we have ruined so many lives over this insane war on drugs. I did a study of the North Carolina state budget several years ago, but I don't think the statistics changed much, where 26% of people who are in state prison are there simply for nonviolent drug offenses. So not only are we wasting massive amounts of tax money by incarcerating so many people, we've ruined so many people's lives. And I have one of my more controversial, I hope, videos out for this campaign is where I call for reparations for people who've been in prison by the war on drugs, because it's not just enough to expunge their records and to help them try to get a job again. You know, we brought the most productive years from so many people's lives and broken out so many families and communities because of it. I think law enforcement should be focused simply on crimes where there are victims, where people are hit or have their stuff taken from them. And that's what it is. As far as the federal government goes, I think that it should be legal all across the country, but in states that are being proactive and doing the right thing about it, I definitely want the federal government to respect that and get out of the way.
Thank you. On to the next question. What are your views and opinions concerning climate change? And as a libertarian, do you believe the government should play a regulatory role?
I like to keep things really simple, because I am literate in science, but so much of the research on climate change is politically motivated that it's really hard to sort through it and figure out what is real science here. However, I just posted it today, a video from my 2014 campaign, Pollution is a Crime, where I just try to deal with this a lot more directly. I think a lot of the solutions that we come up with are far too complicated and are really geared towards protecting profits and allowing a certain level of pollution from governments and from multinational corporations. And governments really are much greater polluters. The United States Navy, I think, is the greatest polluter in the United States. And of course, they don't pay any reparations to anybody for what they've done to the oceans. But in my video, Pollution is a Crime, I lay out that to me it's just very simple. When you harm people, when you devalue their property by degrading it through pollution, or you harm people physically through it, you need to compensate them for it. And if you commit a crime as vast as, say, the coal ash spill that we're still trying to clean up in the Dane River, if members of the boards of directors could see that as something that costs them personally, possibly even with jail time, instead of simply being able to treat it as the cost of doing business, then I think that these corporate concerns would be a lot less likely to, to allow things like that to happen, to even, let them occur. I'm glad to see in Flint, Michigan right now that there are people who are going to get in prison over that, and I think that's what we need. If you harm people with your pollution, you need to pay for that.
Thank you. Okay. So this is a very important question, especially in today's current elections. It has arisen as a huge issue. What is your view on campaign finance reform? And what are some ways you might change campaign financing?
Well, part of the problem, as I alluded to in my main remarks, is the centralization of power. When we have a federal government that claims the power to rule over every single aspect of our lives, that creates one-stop shopping for corporate special interests. I have a video on this called on campaign finance reform. And the problem is, no matter what we do, it's like playing whack-a-mole. And you hit one mole that comes up and another one comes up somewhere else. As long as that centralized power exists, special interests will find a way to buy it. I do think that Congress has very broad constitutional powers to regulate federal elections. And so I do think that Congress could do a lot more in terms of disclosing who is paying for ads, who is paying for elections. There was one you may recall from my last campaign, there was a group, American Future Fund, that paid for ads promoting me, trying to get people to not vote for Kay Hagan, full votes from Kay Hagan, to me to help Tom Tillis get elected. The Get Haugh, Get High web ads, which were really quite delightful. But to this day, 2 years later, I'm still not exactly sure who paid for that. I think people do have the right to know who is involved in our elections. I also think the Congress does have the ability to, they certainly set up all different kinds of corporations. They have the ability to regulate what kinds of corporations can and cannot make these political expenditures, and create the kinds of corporations that are expressly set up for these political purposes. But really, we can do what we want about it. The problem will persist as long as that power exists to be bought.
If elected, how would your policies differ from that of a Republican or a Democrat?
Well, the main thing is that libertarians don't think the government can solve everything. Whenever you listen to a Republican or Democrat, generally they're going to say, oh, well, I have a program for that. We can pass new laws for that. And then when their laws fail, instead of looking at why did the laws that we passed before not work, they think, oh, we need to pass even more laws on top of that to try to fix the problem. One of the most important aspects of this job, being a United States Senator, is being an administrator. And it's libertarians understand that it's the nature of bureaucracy to just continue to grow completely out of control. Every government program starts out with a good idea, but if you just let it go without proper administration, without pruning it in a sort of gardening sense constantly, then things will just overgrow, and that will create corruption and injustice. So one thing I want to look at, if elected, is exactly how do systems work and how can we make them more efficient. I'm absolutely convinced that we can spend a lot less money and actually serve more people in some of these programs if we could simply get rid of layers of bureaucracy that are built up over time. Democrats and Republicans only want to add new layers of bureaucracy to address the problems that the old layers have created.
All right, so we are now down to our last two questions, so we'll turn it over to the audience, but for this particular one, we want to kind of bring the issues down to a more local level. So what policies would you enact to make the Elon Burlington community a better place? What issues do you see as important in Alamance County?
I honestly don't know. I live in Durham County, and I know I'm not far away, but I want people to be free to determine that for themselves. I really believe, because one thing is that just the mere fact that government takes so much of our wealth, so much of what we produce, that, just like I said, just keeps sucking wealth out of our pockets and out of our communities. One of the reasons why I promote entrepreneurship and promote people's ability to be free from regulations and start their own businesses is because that's the small business is the engine that grows local economies. Because if people are able to start their own business, then they can they'll buy local supplies. They'll hire, when I say they grow, they'll hire local people from the community, and so that money stays within the community and circulates there rather than going off to Washington, D.C., or to Raleigh, or to large corporate headquarters in some other state. The more people that have, can keep all the money that they earn and have more control over their own destiny, have more financial freedom, the more opportunity they're gonna have to make something that not only serves themselves, but the people who are immediately around them.
All right, and for our final question, what is your opinion on presidential candidates? And we can include the Green Party and libertarians, but
Just shoot me here. Well, I am proud. It is nice. Being a libertarian, I don't have to make excuses for my candidate. My candidate is not obviously corrupt. My candidate, Gary Johnson, is trying to bring people together rather than trying to make internal enemies of each other in order to get elected. I mean, libertarians have long preached the kinds of solutions that attempt to benefit everyone, attempt to administer equal justice under the law to everyone, rather than setting people apart or setting people against each other. So, to me, as Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, our candidates for president and vice president, have such a tremendous opportunity, because I think people really want, as they like to call it sometimes, to listen to the adults in the room. And as far as voting for the lesser of two evils over and over and over again results in what we have now. Trump versus Clinton, who are two of the most wildly unacceptable candidates that have ever been offered. And it disturbs me that there are so many people who are willing to support the hateful and divisive and frankly nonsensical message of Donald Trump on the one hand, or the open corruption and warmongering of Hillary Clinton on the other. I find them both just completely unacceptable. So I'm really glad that libertarians are offering people all across the ballot. We have Lon Cecil for governor. We have several candidates for General Assembly, as well as myself for U.S. Senate, and people running all across the country too, who are giving people a much standard alternative. As far as the Green Party goes, I like Jill Stein a lot. I think libertarians, I found that being in a third party, that I have a lot more in common with anybody who's not a Democrat or a Republican at all, no matter how far out there they are, than I do with Democrats and Republicans, because we generally agree on some very basic issues, that we have to stop war, that we have to end corporatism, and that government is supposed to serve the people and protect individual rights, rather than serving corporate special interests.
Thank you, John, for
Okay.
answering all of our moderator questions.
Thank you.
And thank you, John. And where everybody can come stand behind me for audience questions if you guys have any. So please.
Okay.
Mr. Elton, thank you for being here. So in your opening remarks, you talked about the importance of targeting inflation, and I was wondering what is your public policy stance regarding the Federal Reserve?
Well, I think that first of all, we need to audit that. And that to me is just a no-brainer. How anybody could be against that is just astounding to me, that we've given so much power to our monetary policy to this kind of quasi-public-private institution, that we need to know what's going on with it first. And I advocate that before abolishing that, although I'm convinced we do need to abolish the Federal Reserve. Because as I talked about monetary policy, their game is to try to make sure that inflation stays at 2 to 3%. Not deviate too far out of that range either way. And that is a system, what that means is that continually 2 to 3% of our wealth is being transferred out of our pockets, out of our purchasing power, to those who are connected to the Federal Reserve. And we need to have sound money that actually means something that can keep its value over time. I think that's probably a complete answer. I mentioned how it is.
Hi, my name is Matt. I'm a fellow libertarian, and
My
my
shirt.
question, yeah,
I haven't seen that one before.
I know, yeah, I like it. So my question is, how do we, as libertarians, make people understand that we aren't as extreme as we're portrayed, and how are we actually going to succeed when the media, the culture, the media, the people who control who gets in the presidential debates, they all seem to be against libertarianism?
Well, that portion is changing. I personally see tremendous treatment. Yeah, I'm extremely happy with how it is, but it's customer service. I try to make their jobs fun, and by doing so, I try to make sure they don't answer their calls when they call me. And the reporter calls me at 2 o'clock. I know he's working on a 4 o'clock deadline, so we try to give them the product that they want, and they'll keep coming back. So much of this is based on personal interaction. I'm utterly convinced that most everyone's opinion of libertarianism is totally based on how they feel about the first person that they knew was libertarian. If they like that person was nice, the person didn't seem like a nutball, well, then they're going to think libertarianism is probably worth listening to. And if that person was a jerk and trying to throw books at you and convince you how evil you are because you're not already libertarian, well, so, and then at the macro level, it's the same thing. We have to show, I think it's really important that we show people how our policy prescriptions and how our principles actually benefit people. One of the whole problems of being an ideological movement, and this is true of any ideological movement at all, any third party, is that people come to it because they reason themselves into it at first. And so they really don't care so much about social convention or what you think about my opinion or anything like that. So if we actually, test our ideas, look at the real world, and make sure we can show people this is how your life is going to be better with libertarian ideas, libertarian policies. I think that's a real big key to my success and why I've been able to get the kind of attention that I have. And I also think that's why one of the reasons why Gary Johnson and Bill Weld have been so very appealing to me, because they have such strong records as governors of doing exactly what they said they were going to do and having positive results to show for it when they were done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Mr. Haugh, thank you again for coming. My name is Josh. I'm also a libertarian.
Awesome.
Naturally, part of the platform, that you laid out, and everybody, the party needs to have is, an emphasis on small government, and in keeping with that, lowering taxes, significantly. It seems like one of the biggest detractors from that is that it might hurt public education. And some of the people, from the Libertarian Party, I've heard of even tossed around the idea, to combat that, of privatizing education. And I guess I just want to know what your stance is on that and how it differs from the larger stance of the Libertarian Party.
Well, now, I'm running for the United States Senate.
Right.
So I take a federal view of it. I think that public education is a grassroots thing. It starts with the student-teacher relationship. I would advocate for privatizing education, except that the North Carolina Constitution very clearly states that K through 12 education is basically a right, and the state is obligated to provide it. And there have been plenty of court decisions subsequently that have made it very clear that it's not just they need to make sure that have an education, but that the state provides it. So that's not a battle I pick. In order to change that, I would have to amend the North Carolina Constitution. But I do think it's vitally important that the federal government get out of education, that so much of government policy is about top-down solutions, one size fits all, that completely ignores that student-teacher relationship, that has no feeling whatsoever for what happens in the classroom. And so you have, you don't really have education going on anymore, you have teaching to the test. I've talked to a lot of teachers and former teachers, people who quit. And a lot of those who quit are really disillusioned because they thought they were signing up for an ideal. You know, I'm going to teach kids, and it's going to be a wonderful thing. But now they get so little support and spend so much time pushing paper, meeting bureaucratic demands, and then teaching to the test that they get almost no time for the kind of job satisfaction of actually reaching the kids that they wanted to have. So I think that if we remove layers of administration from our educational system, starting with abolishing all of it from the federal government, that we're going to be able to put more resources into the classroom itself and into the teacher. You know, let teachers teach. Let professional. One of the big problems with government, and it's most pronounced in education, is that we think once we get in the United States Senate, we're experts on everything. You know, I don't have kids. I'll be in Washington, D.C. I'll be as far away from the classroom as you can imagine. So my attitude is to try to empower the professionals, the people who really know what they're doing, and give them the opportunity to do their jobs. So I think that we can probably get, by eliminating a lot of administration at the state and federal levels, the resources would be there for teachers to actually be able to do a good job educating our kids again. Thank you.
Mr. Haugh, my name is Jack Johnson, and I was wondering if you defend a progressive income tax, a progressive flat tax, or some third form of tax, and why?
No, to all taxes, really. Now, I prefer to look at spending first. Because you have to balance budgets. So the first thing that I really look at when approaching that is cut spending to live within our means, which we're just not doing right now. But I prefer the approach of eliminating taxes as much as possible. I think that we can easily eliminate the income tax and the IRS along with it, and make do on several of the other excises and tariffs that are constitutionally supported that we have now. But I'd always be looking to, there's so many little taxes and so many little fees out there. I really want to try to reduce as many of them as possible. But just as a general approach, I would look to reduce and eliminate existing taxes rather than, I'm really against trying to create a new system such as a flat tax, because I don't want to give them any ideas. I mean, if we say we're going to replace the income tax with the flat tax, what's going to keep the federal government from coming back later and saying, oh, we should have both an income tax and a flat tax? I don't want to create any tax powers at all. But I think, like I said, that we can cut taxes significantly and still be able to live within our means at the federal level.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jacob Hayward. I want to thank you again for coming out.
Thanks.
But you mentioned earlier the growth of bureaucracy and wasteful government spending. I was wondering, what is a example of a department or program you view as particularly wasteful, and how would you curb it?
Well, war. Is, our war machine is so incredibly wasteful. We are all to subsidize the arms manufacturing business. We spend billions of dollars to give weapons to so-called moderate Syrian rebels and other allies and proxies in the Middle East. Billions to Saudi Arabia and to Israel. And we give away so much to our NATO allies, to Japan, South Korea, and we spend so much of our own money on their defense. And then here at home, Richard Burr, my uncreased like jobs program, where we have plenty of examples of multi-billion-dollar projects that the Pentagon doesn't want. That the Pentagon, that planes that don't work, that each cost like $1.3 billion, just to make one. Yeah, and yet Congress keeps voting for these programs because they create jobs back home, which to me is just incredibly shameful. We're putting our own, we're lining our own pockets at the expense of national security and at taxpayer expense. We're really just be better off not spending that money at all.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Patrick Everett. Thank you for being here. I have sort of two very different questions. First one is not really a federal issue, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts and observations on House Bill 2. And the second one was about your stance on the conflict in Israel.
Okay. On HB2, I have a video on that called So Why Did It Have to Be Bathrooms? When we have a government that has gotten to the point where it feels like it needs to regulate who gets to go to the bathroom where, I would say that that is a government that's way too big and way too intrusive. And so to have these Republicans in Raleigh passing this stuff and trying to tell us that they're part of a smaller government, we should gender ID parts and all this ridiculous stuff. But if you see the video, I take everyone to task for that. The city of Charlotte, federal government, it's just, this is just, as government continues to claim the power to regulate every single aspect of our lives, they're just going to keep reaching more and more ridiculous levels. And I'm particularly ashamed of this particular brand of Republicans that are in charge in Raleigh now, because they keep passing things that are blatantly unconstitutional, that are going to lose in court, and they simply do it for political reasons, in order to try to set people against each other and gain votes. And to try to game the court system like that is just incredibly shameful, and to spend taxpayer dollars on this, the voter ID case, the gerrymandering case. These are also things where they knew they would not stand court muster, and now we're paying for their responsibility. On Israel, I think that I think we need to stop sending arms to absolutely everybody in that region, including Israel, and that we end up supporting. It's not just Israel, we do it with Saudi Arabia too, where we consider them our allies, and we're going to just fund them no matter what they do. And so when war crimes are committed against Palestinians, or war crimes are committed against Yemenis, south of Saudi Arabia, we continue to pay for that with our tax dollars. And Israel in particular is a very prosperous country. It's a wonderful place, great people, all kinds of science and culture going on. They have the means to protect themselves at this point. I think that they can ensure their continuing existence just fine without billions of dollars to arms and tactical support from the United States.
Thank you.
I was wondering your thoughts on socialized medicine and Obamacare.
Oh gosh, I got a great story for you. Okay, I'm gonna be able to afford this time tax, 4 days of hospitalization. I'm gonna pay for it as pockets. Okay, I don't have insurance. And because I don't have insurance, I am a preferred customer. And so, so take it back from the top view down, instead of my own personal level, the big problem is that with government trying to regulate every single aspect of medicine, healthcare, and health insurance, that it has driven the prices up so drastically that it is really unaffordable for a lot of people. And you know, when I was looking at it before I had the heart attack, I was thinking I would be interested in a policy a catastrophic policy. You know, high deductible in case I get hit by a truck or come down with cancer or have a heart attack or something like that. But otherwise, I really don't need insurance. But under Obamacare, that's now illegal. I'm supposed to pay a completely unaffordable rate for me to have health insurance. But even I'm just starting to get the bills now. But I found out that as a cash self-pay customer, I am preferred. I get 50% discount off the top. And I should probably, if I call them up, I had a similar experience, sorry to derail myself. I had a similar experience in 1997. I was working for Duke Hospital. I quit that job to go work in politics for libertarian causes. And as part of that, I gave up my health insurance. And of course, a month after I gave up my health insurance, I broke my foot. Ended up in the emergency room. They fixed me up just fine. I called them up a little bit later and said, well, you know, I don't have the money to pay all the bill right now, but I'm interested in paying it. Can I offer you $25 a month? That's all I can afford right now. And they're thrilled to death. They actually have a live person on the phone who's willing to pay the bill. So they negotiated with themselves right on the spot, gave me a deep discount, and then they said, okay, we really have 2 bills, one from the hospital and one from the doctors. Can you pay $25 a month on each? $50 a month. So okay. I did that, and I had it all paid off in less than 4 years. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, at the time it was about $115 a month that I could have paid for health insurance. It's much more now. In perpetuity for services I may or may not ever use, or I could pay $50 a month for 3.5 years for a service I actually did use. You know, and now I'm sort of looking at the same situation. I'm going to give them a call, and I'm going to say I'm interested in paying this bill, but obviously I can't pay $30,000, $40,000 right now. But can I pay $100 a month until we pay it off? And then they're going to say, oh, great. My goal is to try and negotiate it down to 10, 15%. And that would bring my entire care for my heart attack to under $10,000. And now, of course, there are a lot of people. The tragedy of it is that a lot of people are not as fortunate as I am, or not in the financial position that I am. To, you know, because a $7,000 to $10,000 bill is going to be tough, but it's not going to kill me. Meanwhile, you have so many other people who go into bankruptcy because of this health system has made it so important. So many more people, instead of being able to cover everybody, we found with Obamacare, more and more people are slipping through the cracks. More and more people are ending up on Medicaid. More and more people have fewer options for their day-to-day health care. And if we stop thinking that legislators and bureaucrats can tell doctors and healthcare professionals how to do their jobs, then we can get to the point where people could afford to have choices in the kinds of ongoing healthcare they offer themselves and their family, whether it's catastrophic or just like some day-to-day maintenance.
Thank you.
So thanks again for coming to speak to us.
Thank you.
My question involves our federal public lands. A lot of people use the millions and millions of acres that are owned and managed by the federal government as an example of a government that's too big. But there's this movement for a state public lands takeover where a lot of people are concerned, myself included, are concerned that if ownership and management of our public lands is moved to state control, that they'll be sold to the highest bidder for development or even something as bad as oil drilling. So what role, if any, do you think the federal government should play in protecting our natural treasures?
Well, now those are two different things. In a way, there's one where we have the national park system, and I'm fine with that. I may get into a little bit of trouble from my libertarian base for that, but I'm perfectly fine with maintaining and expanding the national park system and sensitive habitats that the federal government is involved in, and the like. And it's also true at the state and local levels, even in Durham where I live. The city is buying this huge patch of land, it used to be a school, to just to make it swampland, basically, so that rain runoff will properly go into the water table. So there are legitimate functions of government there, but it's still the case that the federal government owns just vast tracts of land that are not meant for this purpose at all, that could be sold, and that would be, I think, quite suitable for development. Our presidential candidate from 1996 to 2000, Harry Brown, had a great proposal, I thought, which I think is still good, to sell a lot of these federal lands and other federal property in order to fund private annuities for people who are currently dependent on Social Security, Medicare, and other social programs, so that we could end these social programs, make sure we take care of the people who are currently dependent on them or about ready to become dependent on them, and also return this money to the people. A lot of it is used for military purposes that we don't really need too. And part of the problem is sort of tying back to protection of ecosystem, is that on these lands, as I alluded to before, the U.S. military in particular is committing just horrible acts of pollution that can be all kinds of toxic waste into our land, into our water, into the oceans too. It's totally unregulated, totally unchecked. So I certainly think that we could do without, especially in western states, a lot of land that the federal government claims to.
Thank you.
Alrighty, well, that's all the time we got for today. We don't want to keep you guys too long, so we really appreciate you coming. Thank you, Sean, for everything. I really appreciate it. Really quickly, also, let's give a round of applause to YAL for really helping. This is what we're not sponsorship. We're really here. Steph and Tyler are our EPF members. We all have different ideologies. Some of us are libertarians, some of us are Democrats, some of us are Republicans, but that's what we're here for, is for discussion and education. So I really appreciate you all coming. Thank you so much, and y'all have a nice day now, all right?